This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with my daily wrestling news update, and just a quick update on my channel, the most viewed wrestling channel based in Canada. I did go ahead and I unblocked everyone from commenting today because I realized that this lockdown has put me in a bad mood. So I blocked a bunch of people from commenting in recent weeks because maybe I got a little more offended than I had in the past. So everyone is unblocked right now from commenting. Of course, no one was ever blocked from viewing. Raw did a 0.56 rating last night. Not a great number. Obviously, the show has been declining year after year in the ratings, and right now it's pretty much unbearable to watch with the empty arena situation. Of course, even though wrestling has been declared an essential service in Florida by the Florida governor, Ring of Honor and MLW, who often do tapings in Florida, have stated they are not going to put on shows in Florida, with Joe Koft of Ring of Honor saying they aren't considering running shows in Florida because the safety of their performers, staff, and fans are the most important things to them right now. And MLW's CEO, Court Bauer, says they will not put their athletes, crew, and staff or their families at risk of contracting the virus. Now, of course, neither Ring of Honor or MLW have TV contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars like WWE has. So you have to take that into account as well. That's a lot of money to give up. I've mentioned before, here in Canada, it's bizarre. Even though cancer is much more serious and deadly than the coronavirus, they have the cancer doctors off. Somebody messaged me today saying that they actually need brain surgery because they have fluid leaking into their brain. But this coronavirus situation has caused even the brain surgeons to be off work. So it's funny that wrestlers are deemed essential in Florida, but here in Canada, non-essential surgeries and even some essential surgeries have been put on hold. I guess Vince McMahon is on Donald Trump's, what is it? I have it written down here. There's like a advisory committee about when he's going to reopen up the economy in the U.S. Donald Trump, from what I understand, is hoping to have things start to get back to normal in the U.S. in May. Whereas here in the province I'm living, we're not saying anything's going to be opened up until July, from what I understand from the reports I've heard. The XFL is also up for sale. I guess that's part of the bankruptcy process. Everyone involved with the XFL was paid up until April 12th, but I guess there's still approximately $50 million worth of creditors after the XFL. That's one of the reasons why Vince McMahon declared bankruptcy. He doesn't want to have to pay off those creditors. So that's a really unfortunate situation. Former WWE Diva Search competitor Amy Weber, who I had no remembrance of, but she's come out today with a video saying she was harassed by Edge and Randy Orton during her time with the company, which I don't doubt. There is obviously a lot of jokes, and definitely, as I've stated, some people that have never been in the wrestling business don't understand what the backstage atmosphere is like in the wrestling business. We're far from all friends. It's a backstabbing industry, a very political industry. And if you haven't been part of it, you'll never understand it. Jesse Ventura has said the wrestling industry prepared him very well for the cutthroat world of politics. But Weber has put out this video making accusations against Edge and Orton. And in the same video, she said she'd be open to going back to work for WWE. So I just find that funny because Randy Orton has a lot of pull back there. And if you put out a video saying stuff about Randy Orton, your chances of getting rehired are slim. But I'd be open to interviewing her if she's up for it. I am interviewing Alicia Toot this week from Major League Wrestling. I'm also interviewing Terry Runnels, a.k.a. Marlena, who used to date such wrestlers as Dustin Rhodes, New Jack, supposedly Brian Pillman as well. So that one should also be interesting. Jerry Lawler is getting a lot of heat. I guess there's a wrestler, as I said, I don't watch it. I only really read the news, but there's a wrestler called Akira Tozawa that wrestled on last night's Raw, and Lawler made the comment, a ramen noodle moonsault or a Roman noodle moonsault when she did a moonsault, and I guess she's Japanese or something. So NXT's Rachel Evers put out a tweet saying, just a casual reminder that being a racist is not okay. Have a great night. You know what? I'm not going to say anything for or against that, but it's like wrestling has become so politically correct. Obviously, that's a joke that the 70-year-old Jerry Lawler said that no one would have thought twice about 10 years ago. Obviously, he's not trying to spread hate with that joke. And it's like we get so much backlash. That's why wrestling sucks these days. That's why I don't want to be a wrestler anymore. It's just a political, boring sport. Nothing interesting ever happens. There's no realism in it anymore. It sucks. AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view that was supposed to happen in Vegas at the MGM Grand last night, or it was supposed to be at the MGM Grand in May. I guess it's been officially canceled. They are going to still hold it, but in some type of empty arena location. Yay. Should be wonderful to watch. Buff Bagwell. So many people on here are bitching and complaining. Well, let me just say a vocal minority is bitching and complaining about my Buff Bagwell clips. Here's a tip. Don't click on them if you don't want to watch them. They're getting very good views. I liked the interview myself. His girlfriend was in the room during the interview. I've talked to him, had contact with him since the interview. He liked the interview. If you got a problem with it, don't click on it. I had already paid him. The interview was already rescheduled once. So for the people saying he wasn't in any condition to do an interview, well, you know what? When I pay someone for an interview, I want to get the interview, especially after it's been put off once. So no, I don't feel there's anything wrong with the interview. He admitted he'd taken something to get a little buzz before the interview, and he's not harming anyone. He was in his home. It was filmed relatively early in the day. And for the people that are alleging they thought he's on cocaine, highly doubt he was on cocaine. He did that interview for over 2 hours. If you do cocaine, you're not going to be able to go 2 hours without hitting a wall and needing more. So never even heard of him ever doing cocaine either. Also, I did an interview today with a good friend of mine, or an old friend of mine, Wavell Star, a native wrestler that wrestled in WWE, OVW, and Stampede Wrestling. So for the Stampede Wrestling fans, you're probably going to like that interview, although I understand it's not going to be for everyone. I'll get into some of your comments James D said Buff got shafted by WWE. Vintage 11178 says, who cares? There's more important stuff to worry about than Buff being lit up. I fully agree with all of you guys. How was my Easter? Cameron Nightoff says, I interviewed Buff Bagwell. On Easter, I worked out. That's pretty much it. Ate an octopus. Ultimate Warrior says, speak to the Warriors. Stay strong, Hannibal TV. Thank you for the updates. Ralph Vaquero, WWE not doing so well. It's absolute crap is all I can tell you. Tony Baracano, I'm not blocked. Fantastic. Try to keep my politics out of it. I don't block people for politics. I block people for like sites that they're spamming my comments with advertisements. I block people if you're going to insult. If you're going to like make a comment towards me as a heel, that's fine. But if you're going to allege that I am autistic or have a mental disability, I will block you. Because let's say I did have a mental disability. Is that not very rude to insult the fact if I had a mental disability? That's pretty cruel to say to someone. And I work a regular job. I've operated a professional wrestling company for 13 years, all aspects of that company. And I have a YouTube channel with over 100 million video views. So if I am handicapped, that's pretty impressive. I've also been a national champion amateur wrestler. I've wrestled professionally in Canada, the US, Puerto Rico, Dominican, UK. I've been a Canadian Open winner in grappling. So pretty good accomplishments if I'm handicapped. But if you want to call me an asshole, if you want to call me an idiot, I don't really care that much. Doesn't bother me. But I've worked with individuals with developmental disabilities in group homes for years. I don't do that anymore. But I don't like people taking shots like that. Junior Masada, why is Vince selling? It's part of the bankruptcy process. You can skip to the start of the video for that. Dewart, thanks for the wrestling news as always. Johnny8908, have I tried to do an interview with Jim Cornette? He said no 3 times. Jay Smith, everyone's enjoying the free 30-day trial of communism. Well, it's been over 30 days here. We're on the 5th week now of it. And I think more people are coming around to realize that this is being overblown. Ultimate Warrior, Linda McMahon got the WWE shows approved through Trump. She works for Trump. Tony Branco, Trudeau has 0 balls. He's afraid of the media. I'm no longer a fan of Justin Trudeau at all. I will not be voting for him again. PS Power, did Raw really do a 0.56 rating? Yes, that is an official rating. And yes, they did once get an 8.2 or an 8.3 rating back when Val Venus was on the show that everyone likes to take shots of these days. Yeah, they're getting a 0.56. They were in the 0.4s a few weeks ago. Jay Smith says by May, but some states could be different when referring to the lockdown breaks. A couple more questions here. Walter Johnson says no tapings in Florida for WWE. They are taping in Florida. They're taping 3 live shows a week in Florida, and still for some reason taping the 205 live show that nobody watches and their main event boring show, so forth. Junior Masada, the girl that came out with the harassment, I guess was part of JBL's cabinet back in 2004. I only have a vague recollection of that, but I'll take your word for it. Sam Lentz, this lockdown is a piss off to see how obedient and compliant we are being for the globalist slave masters. The vast majority of people just do whatever they're told, yes. Now, I have an opinion against that, but again, it's not like I'm breaking the rules or anything. Just like a lot of people were dissing Val Venus for also having an opinion against the total lockdown. He's not breaking the lockdown rules. He even said in the pot shop that he runs, which, by the way, he has been successful out of wrestling in the marijuana industry. He is following the procedures of the lockdown, but because he has an opinion against it, everyone likes to jump on him and shame him. Lance Rosaski, Randy Orton would be a great heel in Japan. Well, he just re-signed for 5 years with WWE, which will put him there till about 45 or so. Tyler Matua or Matu, I'm sorry I don't know how to pronounce your name. He says, I've been fucking girls my age since I was 20. Don't know what that's in relation to. Joe Beck says, Terry Reynolds, who I'm interviewing soon, dated New Jack. Walter Johnson says, good interview with Buff. Stone Roses, 1989, says, accuses them of harassment, then says she'll go back to work for the company. Good grief. Yeah, that was a weird one with that girl. I would interview her, though. I'll try and actually interview her. But I found that was weird. AJRX, Terry Reynolds was married to Goldust. Yes, you're right. She was. Richard M says, bunch of snowflakes. Come on, man. Don't know really what that's about. Oh, that must be about the Buff interview, yes. Viper, 1987. Did I know Buff was drunk before he did the interview? I don't believe he was drunk. First of all, his girlfriend set up the whole Skype thing with me. I know for a fact she was perfectly sober. If he was on anything, it was pills. Mr. Perfect says, I think wrestling sucks because WCW went out of business. There's no competition. Well, AEW is kind of competition, but they are exactly on the exact same level as WWE. They do teleportation stuff with Matt Hardy, a lot of super kicks with people slapping the legs, lots of mini wrestlers, lots of fake crap. So it's not like, I remember when they came back, before they came back, they said they were going to go back to the old school, like the NWA. The real NWA, not the cheap ripoff of the NWA, that is also a lot of comedy crap and shitty wrestlers. So AEW did not go back to capture the lapsed fans like me that now would rather watch MMA than wrestling or boxing. I'm also a boxing fan. Richard M says wrestling being too PC is correct. Mr. Pervert, I still think early 2000s WCW was better than what we have now. I agree with you. I fully agree with you. Is AEW considered essential as well? They probably, who knows? I guess if they ran in Florida, the government would have a hard time saying they're not essential and WWE is. Jay Smith says SJW helped kill wrestling too. Losing a Life says Buff mentioned he was buzzed. I enjoyed the interview. And for those of you that didn't see it, he did say he was buzzed for a reason. He said he was buzzed because he's depressed of the lockdown situation. Somebody, the $4.95 Marauder just tipped me $9.99. Really appreciate that. He says, please book a midget wrestler from Tennessee named Butch Cassidy. There's YouTube of him. He's in my family. He's Pat Patterson and Eddie Guerrero's friend. He has some stories. More info, hit me up. Well, if you mean book him for an interview, sure, send them my way. I'm trying to do Skypes as much as possible during this lockdown since I can't do in-person interview. By the way, Jacques Rougeau, My old trainer got back to me today and said he is going to do a Skype interview with me next week. And he said he is featured on the Dark Side of the Ring Dino Bravo special that's going to air this week. And another thing about this Dino Bravo murder situation, which I've done a compilation video on here, if you look up Dino Bravo murder, the Hannibal TV, somebody contacted me and said their father was best friends with Dino Bravo. They're from Montreal. And he said he knows the true story and he's going to call me and tell me the true story, the full story on the behind the scenes issue on his killing. So if I listen to this guy and I believe he's credible, I'll share the story with you guys. Charles Wilson, wrestling hoard itself out and never looked back. It needs just enough realism, but it needs interesting storylines and characters to make it work. It's not that hard, yet people seem to complicate it. Ethan Wilkins, if you're not down with that, Hannibal's got 2 words for you. Stone Roses 89 says, anyone see that Omega match the other week? My God, it was horrible. I think you're talking about the Omega versus Best Friends that was like supposedly spot after spot of genital related stuff. I understand Kenny Omega is bisexual and that's fine, but I don't care what people do in their personal lives, but I don't want to see all this sexuality in wrestling. I just don't. If I want to see like sexual stuff, I'll watch porn. Like, that's just being straight up with you guys. Jay Miller says buffs the stuff. Jace by Peria says, is it true you'll lose gains if you run too much? Well, yes, that is true, but right now running is the best form of exercise I can have. Luckily for me, I think muscle memory will come back when the gyms reopen. I am still doing push-ups, free squats, some other band work. But for the people that keep saying to everyone, including Buff, people were saying this to Buff, buy a home gym. Like, those cost thousands of dollars. And for me, I use hundreds of pounds of weights in a real gym. I live in a townhouse. What am I going to go out and buy $5,000 or $6,000 worth of weights and just take up a huge space in my house with all this workout equipment? That doesn't seem reasonable. I'm not even working my regular job now. Like, it's closed till June 30th. A couple more questions. Son Smith says, male escort, not doing well for Buff. I believe he was just on a Gigolo's TV show. I don't think he was actually prostituting himself. Did you go to train at Catch Wrestling, or did I train in Catch Wrestling or BJJ? I don't like gis. I hate gis. I actually can't stand them. I've done some training in them. I don't like them. I like submission wrestling. And yes, I have done stuff in submission wrestling. I've won the Canadian Open winner in grappling. I've been provincial. In Ontario in 2010, I was the Ontario champion for heavyweight and the absolute division in no-gi grappling. Mike H., do I not like Hulk Hogan? Is that why I won't interview him? I'll interview Hulk Hogan. Why would I not interview Hulk